So now with acceptance sampling, what we're trying to accomplish here is really ensuring that if we have this big old, batch, if we take a certain amount of samples from this batch, are we confident that, if what we've sampled is great, are we confident that the rest of the batch is going to be great? And if not, do we still accept it? Do we reject it? Depending on what we are actually sampling, there may be instances where it requires, 100%. You got to look at every single thing. Instances where it requires maybe you only look at one thing. And really that just depends on the type of product that you're looking at. Is it something that we can look at without damaging it? Is it something that is really, really critical and we have to make sure that it is 100%? It really just depends on the sampling, I guess, directions that a particular organization may give. So random sample selection helps us ensure that the data will not be biased towards one particular portion of the entire population. And in some cases, it could be decided that only a particular portion of the population is evaluated, which means that we have a sample, right? That's going to give you a look into what the batches, what the population is looking like. So acceptance sampling is a process of sampling the batch of material to evaluate the level of non-conformance relative to a specified quality level. So when we're sampling, we're definitely looking at non-conformities, right? So there's different standards and processes that could be used for sampling. Again, as I mentioned, it could be something that you develop in-house, or it could be something where you are saying, hey, we're going to apply ANSI, ASQ Z1.4 to our sampling. All right. Let's look at some of this stuff. So whether sampling is the best technique for assessing a product is going to depend on things that I mentioned, right? So the lot size, how often you receive this or how often you produce it if you are, a seller or manufacturer, your typical level of non-conformance, as well as whatever is an acceptable level of risk that has been established. So we have examples here where, if we have a pencil that's received from an office supply house, it's normally not going to be sampled because the risk associated with defective pencils is pretty small. However, if we're in a situation where we're dealing with medical devices, it might be subjected to extensive sampling, maybe even 100%, because of the severity, right, of how important it is, of the consequences of failure. So when properly applied over time, sampling will ultimately keep nonconformities below a predetermined level called the average outgoing quality limit. And when we compare this with 100% inspection, sampling is obviously much more economical and ultimately requires a lot less handling of the product. And when we are handling the product less, we know that we will more than likely run into less issues, right? The more human intervention we have with things, the more things could ultimately go wrong. It's very important to note that no sampling plan yields 100% detection of nonconformance or nonconformities. So for those of you in this classroom, have you guys been involved in any type of acceptance sampling? And if so, anything stringent, how is it in your environment?